Hello, Rewired Army. How are you doing, guys? Today we have very special guest, Jonathan Schecter. He is a breathwork facilitator, somatic experiencing practitioner, and a coach who specializes in trauma-informed, integrative, and transpersonal methods to help individuals feel empowered and to live a life full of purpose and happiness. And he has uh, much more things to say about himself. And because he's into training, neurodynamic breath work, and so much more things. So I will let Jonathan speak. How are you doing today?
I'm well, Yash. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah. So tell me to start with something about yourself, about your experience or journey, or how you got into this field.
Yeah, so I was working in corporate finance for about 10 years, and my marriage began to fall apart. And when I finally left a very dysfunctional and emotionally unhealthy situation, I knew that I needed to do some work on myself to figure things out and to not repeat the same situation that I had ended up in. And that led me to breath work and a lot of inner work. And when I started to explore my own inner world and my psyche and things that were coming up as far as feelings in my body, emotions. That led me into doing more somatic work via somatic experiencing, which is a body based modality to help me integrate and actually put some of the things that I wanted to do into practice.
Right. Wow, that's wonderful. I'm so sorry for your marriage not working out. But that's how you got into this thing, which is interesting, right? So yeah, that's all we are going to learn more about and understand how breath work, somatics, all of these things help us in our life and being us productive. And we will also talk around nervous system and all that stuff. So interesting topics coming up here, and this is going to be amazing. I am figuring that out. So let's start when we were doing the intro call, you mentioned like something around like we are not lazy. Often we
Right.
are not lazy, we are just dysregulated, right? So can you explain how our nervous system directly affects into all of these things and
Sure.
productivity?
Yeah, so I know that your show is about productivity and growth, so I'll try to kind of keep my answers around that. So the main job of the nervous system is safety. When we were wild animals or when we were cavemen, right? The nervous system was keeping us safe from predators, from things that are in our environment that wanted to hurt us or eat us, or and the same thing still happens to us. We've all had that experience of maybe going into a dark room and seeing something that looks dangerous, but then when you turn on the light, it's not actually what you thought it was, right? Like the
Right.
rope looks like a snake and you get a little bit startled. So that's the nervous system at work, right? And in the, if you did run across a snake, say if you were out hiking or something like that, the nervous system is what is startling you and making sure that you know how to run away from something dangerous, or telling you like, okay, I need to fight. Now the thing about the nervous system and the brain is that 80% of the information that is picked up from the nervous system, 80% of the communication that's going from the nervous system to the brain is going in that direction, from the body, from the nervous system into the brain. So the nervous system is picking up millions of data points every day without us having to do anything to it, right? It's an autonomic system, meaning that it's happening automatically, but we have the ability to influence it as well. So
Right.
80% of this information is going from the body to the brain. And then our brain is interpreting that information based on past experiences. And if we've had trauma or things that occurred in our life that make us interpret that information in a particular way, that might keep us from actually taking action on something that we want. Like, for instance, an example in my life, I mentioned I was in corporate finance, right? Um, well, I got to this point where I really liked the work I was doing, but didn't think that I wanted to stay doing it. I wanted to start Blue Magic Alchemy, my coaching and breathwork company. But in my body, the thought of leaving a safe corporate job where I had insurance and benefits and retirement, and I knew what the routine was. I knew what I was supposed to do every day, to go and start something that was completely brand new, where I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to start a business. I didn't have any clients. Um, in my body, that felt really uncomfortable, like unsafe. And even, at a certain point before COVID, I ended up getting laid off. And from one perspective, there was one voice inside of me that was like, oh, this is it. This is the universe telling you it's time to start this project. It's time to go. And then there was this other thing in my body that was like, this doesn't this doesn't feel very safe, right? So it took me a lot of time to have to work through the emotions and the
Mhm.
feelings that would come up when I would think about actually starting up my own business. And
Mhm.
what I worked through with my own somatic practitioner and in my own integration is that one of the things, at least, is that I've always, up until a few years ago, had a job, corporate jobs. I've worked in
Hmm.
Fortune 500 companies for about 20 years. And so that was familiar to me, right? On the one hand. And then when I take it back even further, my father, who was a salesperson. Well, my parents got divorced when I was pretty young, 4 or 5. And my mom used to always um, kind of speak down or talk bad about my father being a salesperson, because he went through a period where he wasn't making a lot of money. And so as a young child, I absorbed that message, and the way that my I internalized it is having a job is safe, and this is what I need to do, and it might be unsafe to be out on my own and trying to make my own way in the world, even though there was a part of me that desperately wanted to do that. So in order for me to actually step into the path that I have and that I'm on now, I really had to work through a lot of those emotions that were coming up in my body telling me, keep it safe. Don't go off on this other path.
Right. Wow. I say I got to listen to the detailed story of your life, which I loved it. And you mentioned the points like autonomic systems. Your brain just goes on that sometimes. Sometimes it goes on flight or fight, and your nervous system wants to keep you safe,
Yeah.
right? And that's where you wanna decide that do you wanna be safe in your job or you want to do your business, and that phase of transformation is tough, and I understand your point. So my next question comes here is how your experience as a somatic practitioner helps in this kind of situation when you have to rewire your brain, we can say. Funny, we are on rewired podcast.
Mhm.
And get your nervous system to tell that whatever you might have learned in your past as your childhood learnings might be true but might not be true. So how your
Right.
somatic experiences or teachings help us in this situation?
That's a great question. So to me, we have to learn how to slow down and actually listen to
Okay.
what's happening in the body, right? We're
Hmm.
we're very quick to move into the mind. The
Hmm.
mind has a story. There's a meaning to our experiences. But when
Mm,
you slow things down, you can start to look at the experience that you're having as not just the meaning, but also what does it feel like in my body? What are the emotions that are coming up? And
mm,
until you start to examine that, like they're completely linked together. They're completely coupled, right? So
right.
what somatic work helps you to do is just to create a little bit of separation between the meaning that you're assigning to this experience and the actual way that it's showing up in your body, the emotions that are coming up around that, and the way that the mind is interpreting that based on past experiences. An easy
Mm,
example for this um, is somebody that gets into a really bad car accident and doesn't want to drive anymore, right?
mm,
The probability of them getting into an accident every single time they get into a car is fairly low. But because of past trauma, the experience of driving might feel unsafe in their body. So every time they go to the car, I don't know. Now I don't feel safe doing this, right? Maybe they stop driving for a while. Maybe they buy a big SUV because it's helping them feel a little bit safer when they have to do this particular thing. It's not the experience itself, it's the way that they are interpreting that in the body and the mind. So
mm,
as far as how we can do that, the first thing that I usually do when I'm working with someone is try to get them out of their head. We tend to want to be in the head a lot. Somebody comes in, they start telling me their story, and
mm,
oftentimes I'm saying, hold on a second, hold on, what are you noticing in your body right now as you're telling me about this thing that you want to accomplish, or this
mm,
pattern that you want to change? I want to stop drinking, right? Or I want to start a business, or I need to leave this relationship or start a new career, right?
right.
um, as you're telling me this, what do you notice in your body? And oftentimes I find that we're very disconnected from the body, right? We haven't been
Mm,
taught, most of us haven't been taught how to
right.
connect to the sensations that are happening in the body. Maybe if you
Right.
have a meditation practice, you might be aware of some of those sensations, but
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we just kind of live in the head. And so it's like, how can we start to learn a new language, really, which is the
Right.
language of the body? What do
Mm,
you notice as you start to slow down? Like even right now, if you were just to take a nice deep breath in through the nose and let it go, and then just for a moment, just notice what you're feeling in your body, right? Like what can you sense? Can you feel the temperature in the room? Can you feel your feet on the floor, or the way that your body is supported by a chair or a couch or whatever it is that you're, sitting on? There's probably sounds that you can hear and maybe smells or even tastes, right? So there's a
mm,
whole world of sensation and somatic experiences that are happening, but we usually are just kind of rushing right by it because the brain is so in control, right? So
mm,
a lot of my work is getting people to slow down and start to notice, because that's where the emotions start to show up. And if they can connect with the emotions, then they can work through that, so that whatever block is keeping them from that next growth point, it actually feels safe to move through.
wow, wow. These are some value bombs here. And I am noting down all of those things point by point because you are giving really nice topics into. I love the concept of slowing down. I have mentioned in one of my reels as well that taking a break is not something bad. It's not like you are not quitting it. If you don't even try, that's something bad. But slow down, analyze your life, feel the emotions, feel the sensations around you. Don't just rush towards it, and try to get out of your head. I love that point. So, wow. And I think by slowing down when we do meditation and breath work, I think that also helps us, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's really what we place our awareness on becomes more alive to us. You know, you mentioned
Mm,
rewiring. So many of us are focused on a certain subset, you could say, of sensations and emotions and experiences, and oftentimes those are very negative, right?
mm,
We notice when we have a pain in our knee, or
right.
a headache, or we're feeling agitated, anxious, upset. But how often do we take the same time to notice the little moments during the day where we might feel happiness or joy or ease, right? There's a psychologist named Deb Dana that coined this term glimmers. And glimmers are like the opposite of triggers. Glimmers are those little micro moments of nervous system regulation where you know what? I feel good right now. And when do those come in? Like where I work, there's a fountain outside of the room that I'm often teaching in. And yesterday, as I was teaching, there were these two hummingbirds sort of playing with each other outside of the fountain, right? And I could see bees and other birds landing, and it was really enjoyable to notice that and like take a few breaths and really feel it in my body. You might notice it when somebody says something nice to you, or your dog runs up and gets in your lap, or your kid comes up for a hug, right? Or a sunset. There's all kinds of these little moments that are happening, and if you're not paying attention, they might just go right by. So
Mm.
that's another part of the slowing down and the rewiring is when people, oftentimes I'll take somebody through a somatic practice and I'll say, how are you feeling? Oh, I feel good. Okay, what does that feel like actually? Where do you feel good?
Mm.
Right? And like, can you just stay with that? Can you notice it? Can we slow down and just be with that feeling of good so that we're starting to rewire our awareness to actually be more conscious of good when it's happening?
I think I am getting that good call with you, and I'm getting that feeling right now that
Yeah.
I'm chilled out. I mean, you can see that smile on my face is continuous right now,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I can literally feel the way you talk, the way you have, the way you are uh, mentioning all those little details, like you were telling the story about the birds coming up and chirping, and those minute things you mentioned. That makes me feel good. I had a question around like there are misconceptions around like, not misconceptions I would say, but the difference between, or whatever you think, is it the difference or the connection between breath work and nervous system?
Mm.
And explain how.
Sure. So to go back to the nervous system being autonomic, right?
Mhm.
Autonomic meaning automatic, but we can influence it. One of the main ways that we can influence that system is through the breath. There's lots of systems in the body that we have no influence over whatsoever, right? Like I can't tell my liver to work 20% better, but I can change my breath and therefore change my heart rate. Um, that might happen automatically. If I see that snake when I walk outside, my heart's going to beat faster. My breath is going to go a little bit faster so that more blood is getting into the parts of my body that I need for that safety. Right.
Mm.
Um, so the breath is like this bridge between the body and mind, between the outside experience and the inner world. And so working with the breath is one of the best ways that we can actually work with regulating our nervous system, becoming more calm in the mind as well, right? If I start to slow my breath down, if I start to take deeper, slower breaths, my body just starts to relax. And if my body is relaxed, then my mind starts to relax, right? Like we might backdoor our way into that through meditation, right? Like what's happening when we sit down and meditate? Well, we start to slow our breath down a little bit. We're not doing so much. And all of a sudden we find ourselves in a more relaxed sort of state of mind. How did I get
Right,
here? Well, my body relaxed. So my mind started to relax as well. So
right.
slower and deeper, in and out of the nose if we can. Those are just some basic things, right? Like this isn't even
Mm.
breath work, in quotation marks. You could say it's just a good general principle for how to help regulate the body, slow things down, and also to calm the mind as well.
And live a good life,
That's right.
ultimately,
Yeah.
right? I love your philosophy around these things. I wanted to ask around like how we could connect all these things to being growth focused. Like obviously you mentioned slowing down, but how would you suggest this as a helpful practice, being into growth mode, going into like working more productively?
Yeah. So I think one key to growth is practices that support what you want to accomplish and doing them in a consistent way. So,
Mm,
for instance, when somebody new comes to work with me, I suggest they add 5 minutes of what's called coherence breathing
mm,
into their daily routine. That's simply deeper diaphragmatic breaths in and out of the nose for about 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. Now, the reason that I would suggest that is number one, it's easy, right? Like, who doesn't
mm,
have 5 minutes that they can add to their day? Um,
right,
whereas if I said, "Oh, you got to start meditating for 30 minutes and do this and do that," right? They're just it's easy to give up. So, to borrow the phrase from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, first we standardize before we optimize. Um,
mm,
but from the nervous system perspective, the more that I give my nervous system the experience of being in a regulated state, the easier it is to drop into that state and the more familiar it is for the nervous system. Sometimes when people do that breath work for the first time, they might say, "Wow, I've never felt so relaxed," or "I can't remember the last time I felt so relaxed." So it's really about creating that familiarity in the body and the mind so that I'm more likely to go back there, and I'm more likely to use it when I start to feel dysregulated or upset, right? Um, so I would say, either starting your day with that, ending your day with that, or definitely if you're going to sit down and do some growth work for yourself, maybe
right.
take that 5 minutes and do some breathing so that you're coming from the beginning of being regulated, of being in your body. And, oh, maybe as you start to do that growth work, you might notice some activation, some anxiety start to creep in. Okay, let me just pause for another minute and breathe. And you know the deeper version of that would be doing somatic experiencing with someone like me, where we're really slowing down and like allowing the emotions or the anxiety or the discomfort to come up in a way that's supported and safe for the participant so that they can work through it. Right. So one of the things that happens in somatic experiencing is we get to release tension, stress, trauma in a way that it's safe. And just like an
Mm,
animal, that goes through a traumatic experience, when that trauma and that danger is over, they discharge. Like the antelope when they get away from the lion might shake for a few moments. um,
right.
Humans don't always shake. Sometimes they do. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes we yell. Sometimes we like, "Arr!" We might get really, angry. But it's all about allowing the body to complete that response so that that energy isn't left in the body and we can come
Mm,
back to a state of regulation.
wow, wow. I uh, love the quote and quote that I want to mention. Like, when you slow down, you are actually increasing your chances to go faster
Mm,
on in the direction that you actually want to and need to go. So
yeah.
I love that thing. And breath work, neurology, and all these things, neuroscience is important in all of these things. So I love the fact that both of our topics are aligning, and it ultimately helps us in living a good life, somatic life, and
Absolutely.
experiencing a good healing process, right?
Yeah.
Through which you have also been through. We have fire round questions, but before that, I would like to ask Jonathan, tell us about where people can find you, and like, why is it Blue Magic Alchemy?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So one of the types of breath work that I practice,
Mhm.
neurodynamic breath work, we haven't really talked about it so much during this podcast, but it's a type of breath work that can induce an altered state of consciousness
Okay.
naturally, right? It's like taking psychedelic mushrooms, but just from breathing. Um,
Right.
in that experience, we can have visions or uh, you know experience growth in a way that is different from maybe sitting down and journaling about it, because it's coming from my subconscious, right? I might really connect to what my sense of purpose is. In fact, that's how I decided to start my own breathwork brand, was having these breathwork experiences myself and just feeling in the core of my being that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
So, alchemy is that process of transformation from, traditionally from lead into gold. Now, you might take that in a literal way. You might also use that as a metaphor for personal growth and development. And then the blue part, there's a couple of different sort of deities that I started to connect to or have visions of in those breathwork experiences. And both of them are blue. One is the medicine Buddha from Tibetan Buddhism, and the other one is Shiva.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that's how Blue Magic Alchemy
I
came
love that. So
came
you are
about.
connecting now spirituality with meditation and breath work.
Yes.
I love this. I'm myself a spiritual guy who reads, if you know Shiva, you would know Hanuman,
Yes.
right?
I
So
love
I
Hanuman.
read Hanuman Chalisa daily 7 times, and
Mm.
that's my daily thing and no non-negotiable. And I love the fact that yes, I practice all of those things that you mentioned, and I have been transforming my life myself.
I love
So
when Hanuman says, when I forget you to Ram, right? He says, when I forget you, I serve you, but when I
right,
remember, I am you. So that's
right,
like,
yeah,
that's that state, that breathwork state where we're not really, I'm not connected to the me that's Jonathan. I'm connected
right.
to a bigger consciousness.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we talk to God and when we pray to God about, like, I want these things, I want to do this way, we are not asking God for that. We
Mm,
are actually talking to ourselves. And that's why people say Hanuman and Shiva, Lord Shiva, and all of these Buddha, they are just in your soul. And
mm.
whenever you're talking to God, you're talking to yourself actually. So, and I also listen to, like, uh, God rap songs, not rap songs, what do you say, a kind of those songs, yeah,
Mhm.
in which one of the thing mentioned, like, I was praying to God, and then I looked into the mirror, and he said, it's all about you.
Mm.
I love that concept. Wow.
Yeah.
So where can people find you?
Oh,
Because
right.
after this podcast, they are crawling around and finding you. Like, where can I find Jonathan?
Sure. So Blue Magic Alchemy on any social media, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube as well. I have a podcast called The Vital Point: Pathways to Integration. You can find that on any major platform. And you could also go to bluemagicalchemy.com. Depending on how soon this is coming out, it's in the process of being rebuilt. So it might be a little outdated. That's why I would say you can find me on social media. But yeah, ultimately, just if you search for Blue Magic Alchemy, you should find me.
Wow, I will mention all the links in the description as well, all the social media and podcast and YouTube as well, obviously. Wonderful. We have fire quick round questions, which would
Right.
be just like little questions, which I thought it will be related to our podcast and all the questions related. But you can answer me in one word or a statement or anything is fine.
All right.
I thought this would be interesting and little bit fun, right? So, okay. Your favorite nervous system hack that just takes maybe under 60 seconds.
Orienting.
Orienting.
Yeah.
Like
If
explain
just
it.
well, we did a little version of it earlier, like connecting to the senses.
Okay.
What can you see? What do you hear? What can you feel in this moment? Just to get out of your head and into the body.
I see. Love that. Uh, what public figure or someone who you are aligning with, someone
Hmm.
you could relate to, related to your field?
Oh, that's a good one. Uh, I'll say two.
Okay.
One, Stanislav Grof. He's the sort of creator of a lot of the breath work that I practice. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would also say Ram Dass, just for
Ramdas.
being an inspiration. And I quote him a lot when
Right.
I'm teaching and working with clients.
Breathwork and yoga for
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Right. I love that. So, one breathwork myth you wish people would unlearn.
Oh, that we're releasing DMT when we're doing faster breath work.
What is DMT?
Dimethyltryptamine, like it's a very strong psychedelic, and people say it's in your pineal gland, and that there's when we're breathing, we're sort of activating that.
Is that harmful?
I just don't think that there's any scientific backing to that claim.
Okay, I see. So it doesn't do that. That's what you're
Right? I
telling
don't
to.
think so. No.
Okay. Uh, one somatic tool you take with you wherever you go, maybe
Oh,
in
my breath.
deserted island. Your
My
breath.
breath. Yeah.
That works always, right?
I'm always breathing.
Right. And it's always with you.
That's right. It's
Right.
funny. Where I work, sometimes people come in and they say, "Hi, you must be some kind of hustler. You're getting paid to teach people how to breathe. I've been breathing my whole life."
Oh, that's funny. Oh my god. Uh, define regulated nervous system.
Hmm. Responding appropriately to the stimulus that you're encountering.
Love this. Wow. Okay. Uh, maybe last one. If your nervous system could speak, what would it say to you today? And what would it say to you when you were not regulated?
When I was not regulated, it was saying, listen to me.
Right.
I'm in pain.
Okay.
I'm hurting. Today, it's saying, what a blessing.
What a
Look at what
blessing.
you get to do. Like another day to live.
Right? I was just talking to one of my coworker yesterday and it just came out of nowhere. That coworker is usually very angry towards me, very s- strong uh, not so good relationship with me. And I was just talking to her like, do you feel happy? I feel happy. It's just how it just came out of nowhere. I don't know, and this is the real fact. And then she goes like, yeah, today is Monday, and it's just I'm not so happy. No, I'm like asking about your life. Are you happy with your life? And then she goes like, yeah, I'm happy, but I have children that I have to, work with, and so much tensions work. I'm like, you are happy in your life because you have got children's. Think of it like so many people don't even have kids. They want kids, but they are not. You are living such a good country. You have husband, you have family, you go travel. And I'm like, there are so many little things to be happy about. And it was just out of nowhere, just we had a talk, and that sour relationship between us, now it's a little bit better, just because I
Mm,
started that kind of conversation like, are you happy in your life?
yeah. You asked, you were
Right,
interested in her experience.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I just randomly talk to people, and it just, and that's how I started with this podcast. I used to be an introvert. Let's not go my side. Let's not talk about myself. But this was a really good podcast, and we got to know a lot of things about nervous system, breath work, and in short, rewiring our life to growth, to maybe slow down and then get into the productive phase.
That's
I
right.
love this podcast, Jonathan. Thank you so much for your time. And any last words would you like to say?
Uh, Gene, just thank you for having me, for the invite, and for the audience. Just
Any last point you would like to add to whoever listening to the this podcast, and what would the one point they should take away, go away with?
well, the name of my podcast is The Vital Point, and I always say that my vital point is no matter the method that you're using or the what you're practicing, the important thing is to actually put it into place, to actually practice it, right? Like you could listen to this podcast 10 times, but if you don't actually, you know, pay attention to your breath or slow down or actually integrate what the words that you're hearing is, it's not going to make any benefit, right?
Right.
So no matter the method you use, the vital point practice.
In a single statement, yes, learning is good, but stop procrastinating and just act.
That's right.
Love this. Love this. It was really wonderful talking to you, Jonathan. I am pretty sure I will see you again, and we will be connected on social media as well.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me.